Thank you very much, Mr. Ngobo, Deputy Minister Skwacha, Director General and senior officials present, members of the media here in Pretoria, in Cape Town, as well as in the various stations and print media. Thank you for honoring our invitation to attend this media briefing on the release of agricultural state land as announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa in his State of the Nation address in February 2020. Following the 2019 general elections, the President committed his administration to release state land for human settlement and agricultural development as part of government's contribution to land reform. We meet here today conscious of the disruption caused by the global health pandemic that has had negative impact in the economy and social livelihood of many communities, including our own. Some of the commitments made have been delayed. Reprioritization of resources, as you might have seen through the statement by the Minister of Finance in June, had to take into consideration saving the lives of our citizens and livelihood. We wish to thank our farmers, young and old, commercial and household producers, for working tirelessly during the intense lockdown in order to ensure that our citizens remain food secure. The farm workers, who are at the coalface of production, and workers in the agribusiness sector remain the bedrock of our agriculture and agribusiness sector, and to them we want to say thank you. I wish to extend my appreciation to our farmers' organization and agricultural businesses who made contributions in the form of food parcels to their local communities and ensured that they worked in partnership with government during these trying times. We also want to say to them, thank you very much, and this partnership, may it continue even during this process as we transform our agriculture and land sector in our country. Our country has now moved to alert level 1, allowing more or less some normality in the way we live and work. We appreciate this move, but wish to once again urge all of us to remain vigilant and follow all health protocols since the vaccine has not yet been found. We need to continue to ensure that our behavior protect others and ourselves. Social distancing, washing of hands with water and soap, sanitizing, and wearing the masks must remain our way of life. Today we are here to give an update on how far we've gone on land release following the announcement by the President in February 2020, despite the challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic. Since the announcement by the President in February, the department has released about 135,117 hectares of land to 275 farmers. The breakdown per province is as follows. In the Free State, it was 500 hectares. In Gauteng, 929 hectares. KwaZulu-Natal, 4,940. In Limpopo, 32,170. In Mpumalanga, 50,480 hectares. Northwest, 46,097. The beneficiaries in terms of demographics are as follows. 160 of those who benefited out of the 275 are women, and 114 of those are young people, and one person with disabilities. We want to say, out of the remaining hectares, in 2 weeks' time, government will issue an advertisement notice of farms measuring about 529,014 hectares of the remaining hectares that were announced by the President. In terms of the provinces, Eastern Cape will have 43,000 hectares that will be released. Free State will have about 8,333 hectares. In Gauteng, they won't have any since we have released those already that were there. In KwaZulu-Natal, 3,684. In Limpopo, 129,567 hectares. In Mpumalanga, 40,206. In Northern Cape, 12,224. In Northwest, 300,000 hectares. Western Cape does not have state land that is due for release. However, in other programs of land reform, such as PLUS and others, as and when land is available, it will be released. We also will ensure during this current year and in the coming year that we resolve the issues of trunker land, which was in the then government earmarked for colored communities in Northern Cape and Western Cape, which still remain under the state, and those will be released in time. These advertisement notices will be issued through local, district, and provincial newspapers. It will also be on our department website and local radio stations. Application forms will be available in the district offices and provincial offices of both the Departments of Agriculture in the province as well as the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, what offices used to be offices of Land Reform and Rural Development in the past. The advert will run from 15 October to 15 November 2020, giving us 1 calendar month. We are doing this announcement today to prepare our citizens, those who would be eligible, to actually take note of what is going to happen. And the 1 month calendar, 30 days rather, is to ensure that people have enough time to make their applications. What then is the eligibility criteria for those who would be successful? Obviously, applicants must be South African citizens and 18 years or older. Priority within the target group shall be given to women, youth, and people living with disabilities. This is, I would say, positive discrimination against our male folk. They have been benefiting in the majority in the past, but we don't say they won't benefit, but we're saying we will be biased towards women, youth, and people with disabilities. Applicants must indicate their current farming area, whether they are in the commonage or they are actually operating in our communal areas. The successful applicant must be working the land full-time for the duration of the lease contract. Applicants must demonstrate capacity and basic resources to work the land. Though government will be able to support with other forms of post-settlement support that is available to our candidates, but anybody who wants to be a successful farmer must have a little bit of resources that he or she will invest in working the land. We also would be biased towards those who have farming experience at least 3 to 5 years and more. We're not saying those who are the first time and who are interested to farm will not be considered. The adjudication and selection process will go as follows. After the closing date, all applications received will be compiled and captured in a database per district in each province where these farms will be advertised. The District Beneficiary Screening Committee will then screen the applications, interview against the criteria as set out in the advertisement notices, and make recommendations to the Provincial Technical Committee. The Provincial Technical Committee will then evaluate and review the District Committee's recommendation and submit for approval to the National Department. The National Selection and Approval Committee will consider all the recommendations and approve suitable applications. The successful applicant will be informed in writing, so as the unsuccessful applicant. The land allocation process, we know, always do have challenges and where people may want to appeal, wanting to know why they were unsuccessful. We have then set up a Land Allocations Appeals Committee, which will consider those applicants who ask for appeal of their applications. We also know that in some of the areas you will find that certain communities might have been utilizing state land, some knowingly, some unknowingly. We are also aware that some of the people or some of the state land might have been invaded in one sort or the other. And therefore, we're going to undertake a land inquiry process. This land inquiry process will be ongoing on state land that is already occupied without formal approval from the department. Such inquiry will assess farms that have been acquired, some of them through proactive land acquisition program. The land inquiry will investigate and determine how individuals and communities currently occupying the land got access to it. It will also look at how the land is currently being utilized and whether such use is in accordance with agricultural practices for that specific area. As we know that our ecological system is not the same from one part of the province to the other. Even within provinces, land uses are different. Where such land has been used for settlement, the land inquiry process will bring in the Department of Human Settlement and Water Affairs, as well as Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, so that better assessment could be used whether such land should be declared for human settlement. Based on the outcome of the assessment and recommendations to the Minister, a decision will be taken on the future of such occupations. What we mean here is that it might happen that the land inquiry process find that the people who are using the land or who have encumbered the land may be using the land productively, and they may be deserving candidates themselves, and therefore we will consider those issues in a positive light. And we'd also want to say to those people who are occupying state land without any approval, it is important that they too apply during this process. We've also strengthened our system as the department. As you know, that some of these issues came out of the panel of the land advisory that was set up by the President in 2018-19. That the state need to strengthen its land administration system. As you know that the state leases the land, and such lease is for 30 years with an option to buy. We will ensure that the land administrating unit, both at national as well as in the provinces, do work to ensure that such leases are maintained appropriately, particularly the obligations to the state as a lessor and beneficiaries as the lessees. What then are the responsibilities for beneficiaries who would have benefited from state land allocation? We're saying all beneficiaries who have been allocated state land and signed lease agreements will be subjected to a compulsory training program. The compulsory training program will include entry-level training on the commodity of choice, basic record keeping, and basic financial management, as well as enterprise development. Because in our view, farming, regardless of scale, is a business enterprise. Yes, it is multifaceted because you need to deal with issues of food security, but at the same time, you must make an income out of agriculture. Given that the lease is a legal agreement, it has got certain obligations that must be fulfilled by the lessor as well as the lessee. In terms of the lessee, we say the lease agreement signed between the state and the beneficiary will be a legally binding contractual agreement. The lease agreement will not be transferable under any circumstance. So if somebody has been allocated state land, cannot on his or her own decide that, well, after 2 years I actually don't want to farm and therefore I'll give it to my friend or I'll give it to my sister. That is not acceptable. When such an individual reaches that point, has to go back to the department and say, I've changed my mind, I don't want to farm, so that that land can be allocated to deserving applicants. The beneficiary will not be allowed to sublease or sublet a portion of land or the whole of the farm under the leasehold between him or her and the state. The beneficiary has an obligation to maintain all the infrastructure and upkeep of the land allocated to him or her. The beneficiary will have to manage, maintain, and keep the record of assets received from the state. For instance, some of the land that may be allocated might have house or packing sheds and some of the important infrastructure that is there, which must be kept in good shape by the beneficiary. Any investment made by the beneficiary must be recorded, valued, and reported to the state, because there may be certain instances where a beneficiary may invest to improve the land even before deciding whether to buy or not. It is our view that those investments must actually be recorded so that the state is aware that so much investment has been put by the beneficiary on the farm that was allocated to him or her. Beneficiaries will pay a monthly or annual rental fee per hectare as determined by the state, consistent with the value of the land in line within the area valuations. A credit management system will be put in place to manage debt recovery and management. Failure to comply with any of the contractual obligations listed above, the state will consider the option of terminating the lease. On the side of government as it enters into a lease agreement with the beneficiaries, it has to do so 30 days after the approval of the application. The state needs to ensure that the basic infrastructure is in good shape and register the infrastructure and assets on the farm. It needs to issue monthly invoices to the beneficiary with the payment due date. As I say, that some farmers may choose that I will make my payment on a monthly basis, or I can make my payment on an annual basis. So depending on the agreement reached between the beneficiary as well as the state, an appropriate invoice will be issued. The state will also have to undertake quarterly inspections, visits to the farms to ensure that state infrastructure and assets are well kept, and also to assess whether the individual is utilizing the land optimally. Government has to table annual reports on the performance of the lease and productivity of the land to the minister. I will now hand over to my deputy, who would also take us through on other forms of allocation of state land by government. Deputy Minister Scratcher.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Didiza, Director General of the Department, and officials present here, members of the media. This is just to add to what the Minister was addressed us on, but mainly on the remaining state land that will be released for land restitution purposes. About 360,173 hectares were identified through the state land analysis to be under claim, equating to 413 properties. 43,670 hectares, equating to 60 properties, are new order claims, a process which had been interdicted by the Constitutional Court, which I think we are all aware of, the post-December 1998 application deadline. 4,089 hectares, equating to 7 properties, have already been transferred to beneficiaries of land claims. Research has been concluded on 4,558 hectares, equating to 10 properties, and in due course, these will be finalized. 117,000 hectares currently are under research for the 2020-21 financial year. 30,823 hectares, equating to 46 properties, relate to land claims, have been settled and yet to be transferred in this current financial year. The remaining hectares will be transferred as soon as the claims are settled. On the proactive land acquisition, through this program, 20,439 hectares of land have been released to 6 young beneficiaries, 4 of which are female and 2 are male. These beneficiaries are Ms. D.M. Magoba and Mr. T.K. Maripane of Manini Holdings, receiving 455 hectares. Ms. R.E. Baloi, 937.5 hectares. Ms. R.M. Khaurikwe, 1,751 hectares. Mr. B. Puti, 8,835 hectares. And lastly, Mr. G.A.P. Ayman, 8,469.7 hectares. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Minister and DM, colleagues. There it is. I think we'll start with the questions from WhatsApp. Matiko, need to have something on WhatsApp.
The first question is from Joylene van Beek from Landbouw magazine. Her first question is about lease agreements with the option to buy. What about people who are already 20 years or longer farming in the land? Will they be afforded an opportunity to buy, or will they now also fall under the 30-year rule? And her second question is, it is very expensive to farm. Many farmers sublease parts of the land to support their farming business. Why is it not allowed? And then the final question is from Brian Sokutu from The Citizen. His question is, what is the total worth of the land to be released? Those are the 3 questions we have thus far.
Okay. Minister, I'll request that we take these 2 and then we'll come back to the House here.
I think
let's take okay. One from Mr. Mbongwa. Any other one? Okay, let's take this one. You can go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Moro, and thanks for the opportunity. Minister, Deputy Minister, my name is Mbulelo Musi. I rise in 2 caps. The one as a public servant who is in the Department of Military Veterans. Secondly, in mine, representing people who have established what they call MK Farmers Group. You have sent me some questions. Maybe let me start with the latter because I am their voice, they couldn't come here. The one is from Mr. Mahlangu, who's saying we should ask the Minister, Deputy Minister, and the entourage, why should provinces, departments of land reform have a prerogative of withdrawing an advertised farmland with clear indication that its leasing is earmarked for emerging farmers, that includes military veterans and other vulnerable groups. He says that he's got evidence to that effect, and he would like to engage the department. The second one is issue of emerging farmers have challenged to access to finance. and technical support, what guarantees are there as you rapidly release land that will be provided with support? The third one then will come from me in terms of, because they are our constituency as a department, we have challenges that we've not necessarily had. It's a new sort of phenomenon emerging in the department, with challenges of us not having technical expertise on how we can give them support. What areas of collaboration can we then begin to forge with this new emerging community that is of military veterans who are part of the designated groups like women, people with disability, etc. And lastly, Minister and Deputy Minister, they said that I should request that as soon as possible they would like to engage the department to better be advised and be able to have sustainable programs. And lastly, there are those that are already in the farming area, but there are those who want to be in the farming. So it's a mixed group who want different advices from me. Thank you very much.
Any other question, colleagues? Okay. Nothing as well on WhatsApp? Do you have something? Let's take WhatsApp.
Yes, we do have one question. Start out with the business Maverick. He's asked, who can apply for this land? Is it open to commercial farmers or is it aimed at emerging farmers? And then there's another one that just came through right now from Yanda Nanga from Port. He's asked, there are various instances indicating a large-scale corruption in the allocation of state land to favor prominent members and donors of the ruling party. Buyani Zigana in Kokstad district in KZN, the Kappa family in Lili district in the Eastern Cape, and several other emerging farmers in Mpumalanga. He's asked, is the minister sure that she is in control of the department, especially the provincial and local structures of the department? Is she taking any additional measures to prevent corruption after these instances?
Thank you very much. Minister? Otium.
Thank you very much for the questions. I'll go as far as I can and initiate them too. One, on the issue of, you see, when we allocate, when you are successful and we say we give you a 30-year lease, it means that the property is ours. There is an option depending on your performance as we go forward. And therefore the issue of subletting or subleasing is something that you would do without us having approved it, and therefore it cannot be allowed. There are specific reasons why a person is allocated the farm, and we do not only allocate people the farm, but we also provide the necessary support to people that we have allocated the farm. The second one is, I think someone asked what happens with, I think it's Mr. Musi. It is in recognition of the fact that some of the people that have been allocated farms would be first-time farm owners. And therefore, that is why in the statement read by the minister, we indicate that consciously people that have been selected would be trained in this regard. And I think that also speaks into the technical expertise that Mr. Musi was speaking about. Though we're also conscious of the fact that some of the military veterans come from liberation movements who have a history of being involved in farming, even during the exile times. The third one is corruption. Maybe let me start by saying that let me answer for the minister. Yes, the minister is in charge of the department. She is in charge. As she proceeds, or as we proceed doing our work as a team, we improve. We do improve. That's why even the issues of corruption that people are citing here, there are instances when they do come into our attention that they are attended to vigorously. This department has been able to facilitate a process through its own internal processes that has sent people to jail because of corrupt practices. Even the matter that is being raised, and we do appreciate whether it's the press of the opposition to bring about issues of corrupt practices, but those issues are being attended to. The Zigana matter, it's a matter at hand. The minister, when that matter came into her attention, immediately asked the DG to send a team to investigate the matter, and the DG has done exactly that. And so the point that I'm making is there would be, as we go forward, issues of corrupt practices. People would think that they can be able to have shortcuts. But the minute we discover that and mechanisms are being put in place, in fact, last night only we were discussing an issue of how best we can be able to tighten the screws in the department so that we are able to do what we really are assigned to do, servicing the people of South Africa instead of being involved in corrupt practices. Lastly, I would like to say to Mr. Musi that we are open, and I think that even more than the minister, he would be able to speak to me in terms of engaging those people, because it is one area that the minister has delegated to me, the issues of or the issues that you have raised. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, and thanks to the journalists and also individuals who have asked questions. Mr. Musi will indeed appreciate the meeting with the Military Veterans Unit of the Department of Defense so that we can address the issues you are raising. Actually, for us, it will also be an issue on our agenda, not only in terms of your constituency, but how the Department of Defense can actually buy and procure their food from emerging farmers. You have to feed soldiers here in the DRC and wherever they are. And the question is, from whom do you buy? And I think this offers an opportunity not only in the Department of Defense, but also in the Department of Correctional Services, who can be the immediate market for smallholder farmers. A majority of your centers, the Defense Force barracks, some of them are located closer to communities who are producing either at a small scale, and if that opportunity is open, that could be the immediate market. So I'm saying, appreciated, we'll take you on that discussion and on your discussion of your constituency, which Deputy Minister has alluded to in terms of training that we will make available to them. But we're very happy that the MK farmers have finally mobilized themselves, changing the guns for the plows. That's very good. It's a very nice one. And I'm sure they will do it with the same vigor as they did in fighting for liberation in our country. To the Landbou Weekblad journalist who raised the question about what would we do about people who have been on that land for 20 years, as I indicated in the statement, that the land inquiry process is really about establishing some of those facts and also understanding how those people got access to that land. Because yes, they may have been there for 20 years. Their status there is not confirmed, which needs to happen. As I say, that it might be that in the assessment by the land inquiry process, those people may be recommended to be given formal leasehold on that land. So the 20 years, unfortunately, we may not know it would depend on what the individual tell us on the time that they had spent on that land. But also there are areas where there had been illegal eviction, and we'll have to deal with those and see what we can do. And that's why that land administration unit is a very important unit in our department, which will ensure that we really manage state land as we are supposed to do as umastandi, at least somebody who actually is in control and leasing the land must know exactly where those lands are and how are they being utilized. Yes, farming is a difficult business, like any other business. Probably the challenges in farming is that you have to depend on natural elements that will come at a time when you least expect, like thunder and floods and drought, which make it a bit complicated than other normal farming business. However, in so doing, it does not mean subleasing should be a choice, because in our view, when somebody applies to actually lease land, it's because you've got an intention of working it and making it a successful enterprise. It's not just about leasing it for speculation and for you to sublet again. I don't think we can allow that, particularly where there is such land need in our country and people wanting to lease that land for agricultural purposes. Another question was, is this only targeted to emerging farmers or commercial farmers? Our interest is about emerging farmers, and I think it's important to recall the State of the Nation address of the President in 2019, June 20, because it actually addresses the issues of the legacy of our past as a country in terms of land inequity. And therefore, the deliberate decision by those who were drafting our Constitution in Section 25 to ensure that the state must undertake land reform so that we address the issues of equity in our country needs to be implemented. And I don't think, as South Africans, in my view, we should be uncomfortable about that question, because it's about addressing the land inequality that still persists in our country. And in order to have an inclusive society, we need to address that reality. Yes, it might take long. It has taken longer than we all would have wanted, but it's important that that process is undertaken. And I think as South Africans, we need to see that not only as a government program or a government problem, but all of our problem, because where people are living in extreme inequality, social upheavals occur. So it is in our interest as South Africans to resolve the land question of our country. And I must say that I'm very happy that there are many commercial farmers who are willing to actually work with government in partnership to support through training and sharing their experiences of agriculture with those who are new entrants. And we think even with this land allocation, we will be working with a number of commercial farmers in supporting those who are new entrants. Yes, there is limited support. We agreed as the Interministerial Committee chaired by the Deputy President that those farmers who will receive land from the state in the many programs of the state must be given an initial startup so that they can succeed. If I were to talk about restitution for a while, where restitution has been done and is successful, communities actually are given initial grant for support to be able to ensure that the land that they've received can be utilized productively. Despite the challenges that are there, it's important for us to appreciate that there are many successful stories of people who had received land from the state, either from redistribution or even land restitution. The other issue relates to the corruption matters that have been raised. Indeed, government has taken a stand against corruption and that this is a cancer that we must uproot in our society, not just in the state alone, because we know that corrupt practices are found in the private sector, are found in the public sector, but also among citizens. I mean, the narrative and the slang in the townships of Intshontsho, it's about that, where people get used that in order for me to be fast-tracked on the land, in order for me to get certain things in crooked way, I must pay somebody something. Those are the things and values that we must actually remove from our society and inculcate values of honesty, of doing things in the right way. And the state on its part is dealing and will continue to deal with those. The specific matter that has been raised, particularly of Zigana and Kapa, I must say that Deputy Minister actually last week spent about 4 days in the Eastern Cape attending to the matter of Koti, where that was public, and another matter of Moyeni. So these are matters, yes, which have been public, but the department is dealing with those frontally, because indeed it's not in our interest that those who are better off in society must actually trample on those who do not have. So it's matters that we're dealing with. On the Zigana matter, we will make public the report after having reported to the portfolio committee on the outcome of our investigation and what we will do in terms of those who might have been found wanting. So we continuously deal with those issues with the best of our ability, and those that needs to be taken for prosecution, we actually report it and the law will take its course. But those that we can deal with in terms of addressing the issues that affect our communities, we equally deal with. We've got the internal audit unit in the department whose task is to actually look at how our systems are watertight, but also do periodical checks to establish where there are, instances where irregularities have happened. But also we've been very open to get, as Mr. Musi was saying, that one of their constituent members has got particular proof. We will appreciate that because it's enabled us to actually investigate. Sometimes we do get a challenge where people will say, "Hi, kuna corruption." But when you say, "Okay, tell us what has happened," people don't come forward. So it doesn't enable us to investigate. So we will appreciate when people stumble upon issues where they know that it's not supposed to have been done in a correct way. They will actually, as soon as possible, bring evidence to ourselves so that we can follow up. There's a matter, Mr. Musi, you have raised. Why is it that our provincial offices, sometimes they can allocate and remove people at will? Indeed, it's not supposed to. Where people have been allocated land, there must be reason why they are now removed from that land, as I've indicated, the criteria on what beneficiaries must comply with. Is it a matter of compliance, or is it a matter where department wrongfully are just removing people willy-nilly? Because if that's the case, it can never be acceptable. That is why we have said part of the land administration officers will be to do spot checks to see what is happening on those government farms, but also to look at processes in our own provincial district offices, even national, in terms of the land allocation process. About being in charge, indeed we are in charge. We will continue to be in charge because that's the responsibility we've been given. Not only to be in charge in managing our departments, but to be able to ensure that service delivery continues to happen as the state has committed itself to do so, led by our president, as he had articulated in the State of the Nation address, outlining what are the government priorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister and Deputy Minister. I think let's take the last two from the WhatsApp.
Okay, so first question is again, okay, this one is from Paul Vicchiato from Bloomberg. How will the produce from these farms reach markets? Will the government guarantee a price for whatever is produced, or will it be defined through some kind of cooperative scheme, or will the beneficiaries have to sell in the open markets? And then the next question is from Leela Mangus from SABC News. How did you determine what state land will be released?
Thank you very much. That will be all, Mr. Thanks.
Thank you very much from Bloomberg. How will the produce be sold? The produce will be sold in the market, individually by farmers. Some of them are part of the cooperatives. They will sell through the systems that they do sell. And I think it's important to indicate that South African government now don't have marketing boards, which were there in the past, that actually brought the produce of farmers and then be able to sell on their behalf. We do advise and support farmers through the National Agricultural Marketing Council so that they know what are the market trends through the information that we give, what are the prices in the different markets so that they know where they can sell. Some of the farmers actually sell in the local markets. They don't necessarily sell outside of their localities, depending where there is a market. And the market actually operates in various forms. And we have been having discussions with the Department of Small and Medium Enterprises to also look at what should be the link between ourselves and them so that through their spaza shops and other small businesses, markets can actually be opened for your small producers. We also do train farmers in terms of the global gap, which is about the standards that will enable them to actually export their goods in order to get better prices. We also undertake processes working with other countries through our agricultural attaches in many of those countries, and also working with the embassies that are located here in South Africa to continue operating market access in the various countries for our producers, small and big. The second issue from SABC News, how did we determine which state land must be released? Actually, when the president made an injunction that the state will release state land that is available, one, we do have the data of state land, so we had to look at the state land that is available for release for human settlement. Last year, we released about 14,000 pieces of land to human settlement on that land that is for human settlement purposes. And the 1 million hectares that remained, which was agricultural land, 300,000 of those were for the land where there are restitution claims, and 700,000 of those are the ones that we have started releasing from February. So in the database of the state, we have a sense of the state land that we have, but also the Department of Public Works, which is the ultimate holder of state land that they actually give out for use by government departments. They would work with us on that land that is no more utilized by the state. If it's for agriculture, then they will discuss with us on releasing of that land. If some of that land is under claim, they do so, as Minister Dilil last year made the announcement of the state land that they were going to make available for restitution purposes. On land that we acquire as part of the proactive land acquisition plus, which is what Deputy Minister was announcing, again, we know the portfolio of the land that we hold there that is actually released to the would-be beneficiaries. Thank you very much, and thanks once again for your participation in today's media briefing.
Colleagues, thank you very much. We have come to an end of our media briefing. Thank you very much.